Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall. And this week I have a question for everybody.
Yeah.
When did we decide to make streaming services a puzzle? Because I just recently found out that as we were trying to find a place to watch Comedy Bang Bang, that Shudder and AMC Plus are just like the same thing.
Yes.
But you can accidentally pay for both of them.
Oh.
I haven't yet. But you could sign up for them independently, and Shudder doesn't have everything AMC Plus has, but AMC Plus has everything Shudder has.
Oh.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
It's a good question. I'm over here. You right as soon as you started this streaming services rant, I was like snapping my fingers, like, speak to it, Niall. Let's hear it. And I agree. It's a fucking nightmare out there. None of them are organizationally pleasant.
No.
I will put this in favor of the AMC catalog of streaming services. I did get $8 from them for because they were sued for something.
Cool.
And so the class action lawsuit got me $8. So that, as far as I'm concerned, only streaming service. Tier. Yeah, only streaming service to ever pay me. So that makes them one of the best for me.
It's a good metric as anything. Mine typically is ranked by how many Godzilla movies there are on it, which means that in order it's Max, then Tubi, then Netflix right now. And
then Pooble is up there for me. Pooble's a pretty good one. Grumble is pretty good.
Don't know that one.
Lately,
what's on there?
On Grumble, they've got like a lot of like the 300 blows. They've got, or is it 400? I don't remember.
I thought we were talking about another movie. That was
actually, sorry. This is the prequel.
Before there were 400 blows.
Before there were
300.
And they got that on Grumble or Pooble or whatever I said. But lately,
what I love the most about you is your commitment to the bit.
Thank you. Lately, though, I've been watching a lot of stuff on Tramblo, and that's been probably up there for me.
What's on there?
Lots of
what are you
anime.
watching on there? Okay.
Lots of anime, shit like So What I transformed into a spider made of ooze. I'm Still Sexy, which is a title I've been following lately, and it's pretty fun.
Cool.
There actually is an anime that I've discovered called So I'm a Spider, So What, I think? Which is just... it's a title that if I had seen it... Okay, let me put it this way. I see titles like that and I go, who the fuck is watching this? And then I talk to one of our mutual friends and their wife, who has recently discovered anime as a hobby, as an outlet of entertainment, is watching So I'm a Spider, So What? That they've set aside as sort of their trash entertainment anime stuff.
What started this whole thing of like the earliest thing I can remember is So I Got Reincarnated as a Slime.
Yeah.
And but like I don't know, is it just like a difference in translation thing that I have no idea. The titles have always been like that and they've just been translated differently, or is it
I really don't know. I do feel like there has been a glut in the last like 5 years of anime with titles like that. But why that's the case, I don't know. But anime has always had kind of like weird titles, historically speaking. So I mean, who knows? But yeah, it's like, I turned into a vending machine. Is that really a bad thing? Is now streaming on Grumble, so check it out. Niall.
Yeah.
This week I found a story for the podcast.
Oh, really? It's so different from normal.
This is a fresh story, though. In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's an old story, a story that we've been talking about, but it's also fresh.
Okay. You're really enticing me here. You're pulling me in, drawing me in with tendrils of intrigue.
Yeah. Well, so this is coming from something that I found at the start of this year, the year of our Lord 2025. Knowledge of the existence of this subject has been around for some time, but the researcher writing on it suggests that the topic has maybe been mishandled or misinterpreted or just not talked about over the decades. I personally found it pretty difficult to find expanded information on this topic. It doesn't seem like it gets talked a lot online, which kind of surprised me. Thankfully, the article that's my source for this episode is pretty fucking detailed. So, after all that beating around the bush, Niall, I want to talk with you about MK Ultra subproject 54, MK-DECOY.
Okay.
Haven't heard of that one, have you?
I'm trying. I was trying to think through. I've literally read lists of MK Ultra subprojects, but I don't know this one.
Yeah, MK-DECOY. I mean, and we've talked. I don't think we've gotten too deep into the subprojects, and we have talked about MK Ultra broadly and the history surrounding it, and how a lot of information surrounding it has been destroyed. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So it's always fascinating to me when there's some new, I don't know whether you could say that this information is new necessarily, but what it is, the researcher makes a pretty good argument of saying, like, people aren't really talking about this. People haven't connected a couple of these dots. And compiled information on this particular subproject in the way that other things have. Like, people have really fixated on the LSD experiments aspects of it, which is like, I get it. It's one of the more absurd aspects of it, but this is still within the confines, within the realm that MK Ultra research was looking at, but it is also equally weird and different from the LSD research stuff. And I should say up front, this is going to be 2 parts, and I will eventually have to talk about some fucked up torture stuff as per usual.
Yeah.
With the MK
Part
Ultra.
and parcel for MK Ultra.
Yeah, just saying, you have been warned. Just so you know. Now, MK-DECOY. So this got shared in, I want to say January of this year, 2025. And I was, it's not often that you see somebody coming out and being like, I'm a legitimate researcher, and here is a new extensive piece of writing on an MK Ultra thing.
Yeah, that's worth sending up a signal flare on.
Yeah, so like, and we had the Sidney Gottlieb story that I drew a lot of information from. Was one of the last, big pieces of text on MK Ultra and stuff associated with, but it also focuses on Gottlieb and his life and stuff. This is different. Gottlieb does pop up, but this is some different stuff. So, and this is a topic. This is related to a topic that I've been so curious about for years now. It's well known and I think you would agree, Niall, that in conspiracy circles, the CIA has a heart attack gun.
Yes.
This is a weapon that can induce myocardial infarction silently from range. Is that how you pronounce that?
I think close enough for ska, you know?
Yes. For us, it's been, I think, most well known for killing UFO researchers and whistleblowers. I remember there was the topic that I think I did that was about the liquidization of UFO researchers.
Yeah.
That involved multiple, quote unquote, mysterious deaths in the UFO community. People who were sort of whistleblowers about the government's involvement, and I think the military's involvement with UFOs and their technology, and maybe even like treaties and working with alien stuff. And that person died of a heart attack. And some have suggested it was a heart attack gun that the CIA has developed. I got to be honest with you. I still don't really know what the origin point is for the heart attack gun story. As of yet, I would like to look into this more, but I have to find some more stuff to work with. But I imagine if there truly is a heart attack gun, or if there was research that made the myth of the heart attack gun become realized in the culture, the story behind its creation would probably look a lot like fucking MK-DECOY.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you gotta wonder, did they ever accidentally just make a shit yourself gun? They were trying to tune the fucking tuning fork in this thing, which is I'm assuming how it works. And they get it off by a couple hertz, and it just makes you your colon just spasm.
Yeah, you colon blow it out your ass. Yeah, colon blow. Was that a SNL thing I'm thinking of? Colon blow?
Maybe. Yeah, I think it is.
The two things I can remember from old SNL: colon blow, and I think it was Fucatal.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I sorry.
Anytime I think of fucking this is, I don't know even why I'm bringing this up. Anytime I think of colon blow, that kind of laxative based humor, I watched this at far too young of an age, so it's the thing that is stuck in my brain. It's Van Wilder. Where,
I've not seen Van Wilder.
We'll just say there's a kind of back and forth with the antagonist of the movie, the student antagonist of the movie, that ends with a prank where they make him accidentally drink a bunch of laxatives, and so he shits into a mesh trash can while giving his meeting with the student board advisors or whatever the fuck. And that's the less fucked up thing they do to him. So it's, man, that movie's weird.
That's making him have diarrhea shit while he's talking to people is that being the lower end of fucked up. I mean, did they try to shoot him with other types of CIA weaponry like that?
I mean, they did give him Havana syndrome, and that's the Van Wilder. Sorry, that was in Van Wilder 2: Rise of the Taj. They got Havana syndrome going. No, but the other thing they do is they jerk off a dog and fill cannoli with it.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah,
that's nasty. That's some Jackass shit.
Yep. So go. So
well,
I guess that's knowledge that I have for some reason.
We have spent so many episodes talking about dogs being killed. We might as well let one have a release. Yeah, on an episode. So and this is very terrible. But there is a part of this topic of MK-DECOY, some related projects that did involve killing cats.
Damn. All right.
And, I guess the way we can see that, as grim as that is, because that's truly horrible, we can sort of conceive it as this episode as let's leave our precious pups out of this one.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta put that terribleness on something else for a little bit. So unfortunately, cats do die in this story, and it's fucking truly bizarre and upsetting. So
all right,
again, another warning, I guess. But yeah, Jesus Christ, I got really sidetracked by the diarrhea gun. I don't know. I didn't get any indication that they tried to induce diarrhea. But the thing is, it's funny to talk about diarrhea. It's a funny word. It's really disgusting. It makes it invoke, you hear disgusting sounds in your head that are funny when you hear the phrase. At least I do. If you say diarrhea to me, I'm thinking about the sounds of diarrhea pretty much immediately. Yeah. But honestly, when I think about what MK Ultra and the various sub projects and the sort of aims and goals, if it somehow came out one day that they had developed some sort of remote diarrhea detonation device that they could just fucking make people have diarrhea on command, or they tried to research something like that, it wouldn't surprise me, because all these fucking projects are about just torturing people in the most horrifying ways and making them uncomfortable to the point of their brains breaking. So, it would work on me, I guess. Yeah, is what I'm saying.
The Dookie bomb would be something they would maybe get into
the
at some
Dookie
point.
Bomb. So that is interesting, though, that you mentioned that, because I was looking at the list of sub projects today, and there is one called MK Diarrhea, so that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, all right.
So the source of this, what
your MK Ultra name is MK, and then the last horrible thing that happened to you.
Okay, so yeah, MK Diarrhea. So yeah, everybody email us this week with what your MK Ultra names are. Take the quiz.
Yeah, what a fucking dark prompt.
So our source for this story is retired psychologist and researcher Dr. Jeffrey Kay. He also writes articles. He's been published in a couple places too. The guy, as far as I can tell, is legitimate. So, like I said, the story is not about a heart attack gun, but reading about it made me think about the heart attack gun thing that comes up in certain stories. It made me think, like, I wonder if this is where the story of the heart attack gun evolved from. But again, I don't know that for sure. What this is actually about, Niall, is the CIA's search for a covert weapon that could produce what gets referred to as the, quote, perfect concussion.
These guys, look, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. WWE is entirely a psyop set up by this organization.
Yeah, and football.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out the best way to induce a concussion. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
They're really, so it's literally, they say the perfect concussion.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Now, like I'd said, we know that a majority of MK Ultra related documents were destroyed. And for some historical context, MK Ultra got exposed mostly through these like with the fallout of Watergate and that scandal. There was a lot of questioning of what the government was doing and sort of shady activities in the government. So the trust, I think, for alphabet organizations, FBI, CIA, stuff like that, I think began to dip a bit after Watergate.
Sure.
And so, of course, there was also these Senate hearings and investigations. The church, I think it's called like the Church Commission, that happened in the mid to late 70s, where they start picking apart the CIA, and people are investigating them and getting these documents and stuff. In what I'm assuming is a bit of a panic, the CIA, they destroy as much as they can of the MK Ultra documents. Some of it survives. And I think there's also, if I'm remembering correctly, there's like a pretty big ousting of a lot of personnel within the CIA. There's a big regime change thing that sort of happens. So lots of this stuff is in flux during the 70s, and MK Ultra becomes a pretty hot topic in the media because of this stuff that's getting exposed. So yeah, the Senate hearings on the CIA activities in the mid-70s, these are, important for why we know some stuff. And this is also why we've been able to this is part of why we've been able to piece together stuff about decoy. Now, Dr. K, this researcher, the retired psychiatrist, he does a good job at that, I think. He does some interesting speculative work that we're going to get into in part 2 that is about connecting the CIA's interest in this concussion weaponry and sort of the involved or possibly related projects to more modern torture programs. So yeah, let's dig into it. So the program was codenamed MK-DECOY. If you'll recall, the MK prefix was a designation used for projects that were being run by the technical services staff. They have a couple different names over the years. This is a division of the CIA that would later be called the Office of Technical Services. So OTS, I think, is what they get referred to in this story the most often.
Okay.
But Decoy was one of the many MK Ultra sub-projects. Specifically, Decoy was, as I said, subproject 54. Now, the way this came about is that in 1954, there was a project that was sort of looking into concussion-related stuff in the U.S. Navy's Office of Naval Research. So it's the early to mid 50s, and what they're looking at is the effects of blast concussions on the brain. And the CIA helped partly fund this research at the time.
Okay. How do you test that without just rattling some fucking skulls?
Right. So there's concerns about concussions from particular like explosive blasts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're getting to exactly what I'm about to explain here, which is that at a certain point, they're like, okay, we can't test this on people. Our research can really only go so far.
Oh no.
So it's originally a Navy, like the Office of Naval Research. It's a project that they're undertaking. And when they go, well, we maybe can't actually work with this to a certain point, they go, let's hand it off to the CIA.
Yeah, because the CIA can, I'm starting to think maybe concuss some cats.
Well, you'll see, okay, with the cats and stuff.
Yeah, I shouldn't try to jump ahead on the horrible shit.
It's like,
I'll just let it come to me. It's like grief is stealing, or like guilt is stealing bad things from the future. Like it just don't jump ahead.
We'll get there. So organizationally, the CIA takes on this research, but the Office of Naval Research had basically contributed funds to them when they first started up after transitioning here.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. K mentions that the Department of Defense still to this day does research on the effects of explosive blasts in traumatic brain injuries. So that's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
So it's 1955, and the way it's so funny, the way he describes it here in his article is that, quote, the Navy's brain damage research program had moved towards a very sensitive set of ends and changes were needed. So they're operating from a theoretical standpoint here with this brain trauma, concussive blasts thing. It's theoretical at this point. So then they move it to the CIA. And there is this January 10th, 1956 memo that says this, quote, "It became apparent that development might be expected in the second year, which would make it impossible to operate the program securely under the previous cover." And this memo, by the way, check this title out. It's so funny. It's so on the nose. This is the memo titled "The Conversion of Project MK-DECOY from ONR Cover to MK Ultra." So they're just saying this is our memo about handing this off to the MK Ultra project. And here's what it says. Here's a snippet here. Specifically, human experiments of a type not easily justifiable on medical therapeutic grounds would be involved. In addition, certain items of equipment are likely to be developed, which, according to Dr. Shirley Leon Quimby of ONR, could not be covertly handled under the present ONR setup. For the reasons given above, and because this project in a general way will begin to become involved in the subjects of interrogation in some aspects of brainwashing, TSS/CD, and CD here is chemical division, should recognize that, has decided that it should be funded through Project MK Ultra rather than by less secure methods.
Gotta be top secret. Gotta not share this with the public.
Yeah.
All right.
So, because they recognize that this is going to not be justifiable in any way to the public. And they're talking about how they're going to start involving subjects of interrogation and the brainwashing stuff. So they're moving the, I mean, they're just like picking it up and going like, I love theory, I love concepts, let's start doing something with it. MK Ultra guys, get your hands on this. Now, what I thought was funny is, according to Dr. K, the codename MK-DECOY only ever appears one time in the memo that I just read, and mentions of the subproject by name are redacted in all other documents. I have to assume that the fact that they know that the name appears elsewhere but is redacted is somehow from cross-referencing stuff.
Sure.
I don't know. But there are copies of this memo that seem to have been released by the CIA at some point where MK-DECOY remains censored, but another copy of the memo was released to the Department of Defense, then General Counsel Deanne Seymour in 1978. And these sets of documents, this copy of the memo, wouldn't be declassified until 2004. So it's almost 3 decades after the Senate Church Committee report on the CIA had unveiled details surrounding the Decoy project. They talk about it and stuff, but we don't have these documents. 2004, it gets declassified. And the Decoy project name is barely visible on these declassified Seymour documents. But it's like just visible enough. I think the way it was being described is almost like they tried to blur it out, but were kind of unsuccessful. And you can just barely make out the name MK-DECOY in these documents, in the memo.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, they also identify in one of these documents that got declassified this Dr. Quimby of ONR, and another person that gets referenced a number of times in their work by Dr. K is this guy Hank Albarelli, who wrote a book called A Terrible Mistake, The Murder of Frank Olson and the CIA's Secret Cold War Experiments. So I watched, actually, here's a weird little side thing. I watched a little video of this guy from like 15 years ago. And it was on this channel that hosted a bunch of underground New York music and culture stuff on their channel. So alongside this video of this guy, Albarelli, talking about this book about, Frank Olson and the CIA, they had a video of like it was an interview with Guy Picciotto, I want to say.
Interesting.
I was looking around. There was other stuff I recognized too, but I was like, wow, this is I didn't expect this to have this connection. You know what I mean? The connective tissue.
You weren't expecting like Cro-Mags videos right next to this thing.
No.
All right.
So yeah, Dr. Quimby of ONR, they start to talk about how they're able to narrow down who Dr. Quimby is. And they talk about how a lot of the research for the ONR was taking place in Los Angeles. And the Kay says, like, I think Quimby is probably the person who is in charge of Decoy, or was at least the CIA's liaison to the ONR and their work that was being done there. So he digs up an obituary for S.L. Quimby from November 1986 that was published in Physics Today. As far as I'm concerned, November 1986, that's physics yesterday. But
that's fucking stupid. All right.
But he was a professor emeritus in physics at Columbia University. He worked with the American Institute of Physics and the American Physical Society. And in the obituary, it says, quote, Quimby was known as an accomplished amateur magician and had served as president of the parent organization of the Society of American Magicians.
You gotta have hobbies. I love when you, like, entirely unrelated to the topic you're researching, you just find out someone is like really super into some specific thing. In this case, magic. It's wild remembering how much all of the people in these stories are just actual people.
Yeah,
and not these weird figures that.
He's into magic, stage magic, I suppose. He even, I guess, worked for Harry Houdini at one point. And was friends with him. And also had a friendship that I guess was long lasting with a magician named John Mulholland. And I think he helped Mulholland with his stage acts when he was a magician. But Mulholland, as Kay points out, has been known for some time now as being a part of the CIA's MK-Ultra program. So this magician, Mulholland, was the quote-unquote in-house magician for the CIA.
That's like, it's not actually funny, but it is kind of funny there's an in-house magician at the CIA. Like, the MK-Ultra had a magician on call. What the fuck?
Yeah, it was maybe they gave a guy some LSD and they wanted to subject him to some especially crazy tricks and see how he responded. Just kidding. That's not at all why they had him on call. I thought that was how Chris Angel was invented. Chris Angel has actually created an MK-Ultra project's vat. And he's,
subjected to MK-Ultra projects and their requisite magician.
Yes. So they actually had this Mulholland guy around to teach agents sleight of hand.
That makes sense. That's way less fun.
And to make them better at, quote, stealing items, exchanging secret messages, or slipping poison pills into drinks. And he also...
Why does the CIA have to suck so bad?
I know.
Like, they have no sense of whimsy whatsoever.
You'd think that all that LSD would have instilled some sense of whimsy in some of them, but no, we got to learn how to poison people. Let's get a magician involved. I guess he also wrote, quote, 2 manuals for the spy agency that gave deft advice about psychology and deception. So Albarelli, this guy who wrote this book on Frank Olson and all that, he says that Quimby was a, quote, key player in an eyes-only secret program called Project MK-DECOY, which Kay points out that Albarelli had the name wrong, MK-DECOY, it's MK-DECOY. And that this project was top secret and, quote, initially involved the development of protective gear and other materials and products, as well as delivery mechanisms for clandestine agents. But apparently Albarelli doesn't dig much deeper than what I just described on Decoy here. Albarelli points out that, quote, Professor Quimby was also a close associate of CIA contractors Dr. Harris Isbell, Dr. Paul Hawk, and Dr. Harold Abramson, as well as several other physicians and university-based scientists who covertly worked for the agency and the U.S. military. And that Quimby had, quote, participated in LSD experiments conducted by Dr. Isbell at the U.S. Public Health Service Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky. And again, this is a guy who has connections to the Navy, and may be in part involved, or he's involved at least in this like jumping off point from the Navy to the CIA. And that's important to understand because we're going to hear shortly about how the CIA fucking lied about this.
Oh.
So
the wool over eyes. Okay.
Yeah. So Quimby is associated with MK-DECOY, and he's associated with the ONR, right? That's important. He's a former wartime Navy lieutenant commander. And so the suggestion here is that Quimby could also be the origin point for concussion research, getting to MK Ultra researchers. So Albarelli also from this book points out this guy Henry Bortner. Bortner was the author of this memo, this conversion memo from 1956, which was specifically about how we need to move Decoy, the Decoy project, from the ONR to the CIA. So it's no longer under Navy jurisdiction stuff. This can't be confirmed that Bortner was the person who wrote it. This is just something that Albarelli says in the book. But according to Dr. K, this could make sense even if it can't be 100% confirmed. So this Bortner guy was a chemistry PhD. He actually gets brought up in the book, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate by John Marks, and he shows up in some articles on this subject. He worked closely with Sidney Gottlieb in the CIA. He was there at the 1953 meeting where the CIA and a bunch of the Fort Detrick special ops people dosed Frank Olson.
Okay.
And then, basically, this guy was sort of a go-between. This Bortner guy was a go-between between the CIA and the broader scientific community. He was definitely involved. Whether he is the actual author of this memorandum about, moving this concussion program stuff into the CIA is uncertain, but it could make sense, I guess. So the actual first time the concussion researching thing, this, quote, techniques to cause brain concussions and amnesia, that they would specifically accomplish through a lot of the research is on like sound waves. There's other methodology, but sound waves is one of the main things. All the discussion about the concussion stuff really came up August 3rd, 1977 during the Senate hearing, where the then director of the CIA, Stansfield Turner, were giving testimony, and they're being, grilled for all these revelations about their clandestine activities and crimes and all this other shit that they're doing. And so there's a lot of coverage by the press, specifically with regards to MKUltra stuff. And I have here an exchange between Republican Senator Richard Schweiker and Stansfield Turner. And it's interesting. So Schweiker says, The other question I had relates to the development of something which has been called the perfect concussion. A series of experiments toward that end were described in the CIA documents. I wonder if you would just tell us what your understanding of perfect concussion is. And Turner says, is that in my testimony, sir, or in some other document? And Schweiker says, Subproject 54, MK-Ultra, which involved examination of techniques to cause brain concussions and amnesia by using weapons or sound waves to strike individuals without giving warning and without leaving any clear physical marks. Someone dubbed it perfect concussion. Maybe that was poetic license on the part of our staff rather than your poets over there. I wonder if you could just tell us what brain concussion experiments were about. I have to assume that maybe the poet dig is a jab at fucking
what's his butt?
James Angleton.
Yeah,
I would assume, but I don't know that for sure. But that's, he is the poet spook,
a lover of poetry. Yeah.
And then Turner says to Schweiker, this project number 54 was canceled and never carried out. And Schweiker says, well, I do believe the first year of the project in 1955 was carried out by the Office of Naval Research, according to the information you supplied us. The CIA seems to have been participating in some way at that point, because the records go on to say that the experiment at ONR found out about the CIA's role, discovered that it was a cover, and then the project was transferred to MK-Ultra in 1956. Again, this is all from the backup material you have given us. So it was canceled at some time. I'm not disagreeing with that, but apparently for at least a year or two, somebody was investigating the production of brain concussions with special blackjacks, sound waves, and other methods as detailed in the backup material. And then Turner responds with, the data available to me is that this project was never funded by the CIA, but I will double check that and furnish the information for the record for you as to whether there was ever any connection here, and if so, what the nature of the work was.
Okay. Total denial. All right.
So it's 6 weeks later, in September of 1977. And there's more of this, these hearings. This is the Senate Subcommittee on Scientific Research of the Committee on Human Resources, and they're specifically probing on the CIA drug testing stuff. And they have a guy from the OTS named Lobinger that they bring in for this discussion. And we have Lobinger's testimony during these committees about Subproject 54. So here's what he says. And he's again talking to Schweiker. So Lobinger says, Senator, if I may try to say a few words on that, the files that were available to us for inspection, which are limited, indicated that there was a project being carried on by the Navy having to do with the effects of brain concussion. The CIA developed an interest in that and considered funding it, but actually never did. And as the Admiral testified, the MK-Ultra is merely a funding mechanism, a place they go for money to do such things, but there is no evidence that I know of that the project was ever funded. Schweiker comes back and says, well, I am confused, because here again is another quote from a document that we have seen, which you have released and supplied to us. Quote, following is the technical progress made under the current deleted contract. 1. Specializing instrumentation and numerous testing techniques have been developed to obtain the desired dynamic data. 2. Considerable data has now been obtained supporting the resonance cavillation theory of brain concussion. And 3. Preliminary acceleration threshold data has been obtained for a fluid-filled glass simulated skull.
Okay.
And
so they tried to find a way around using an actual human skull.
Yeah.
With some sort of fluid-filled glass. Okay.
Schweiker goes on to say, it goes on to talk about a blast range and a 2,500 square foot laboratory. The document notes that 3 blast test series have been run to date. It describes a special blackjack device, a pancake-type blackjack giving a high peak impact force with a low unit surface pressure. I agree the records are inconclusive as to the results of this work, but it certainly seems that some testing was done. And by the way, I had to look up what a blackjack device is. It's like a billy
cudgel
club
thing.
Yeah, it's like a cudgel. Yeah. And the pancake one would specifically be like flatter. So as there's more, they're again, remember, they're trying to not leave a mark when this is used. They want to make it look like nothing actually happened.
Yeah.
So
hit you with a tennis racket.
Yeah. So Lobinger responds to Schweiker and says, Senator, you are putting us in the same position I think you were stating that you were in earlier, referring to documents not before us, but I believe you are quoting from a proposal that someone sent to the agency to fund this work, and he is referring to past work. The past work would have encompassed a lot of things like that, but CIA was not involved with that. So they're not telling the truth here.
No, they're denying hardcore.
It makes sense. And what's kind of crazy, and this is a running theme with a lot of the hearings where MK Ultra would come up, is you would get some exchanges like this, but then the subject would just sort of drop away. It would stop being. They would just move on. I kind of brought this up in our original MK Ultra episodes. And this isn't like anything to say necessarily like, oh, there's a nefarious conspiracy to like is this a limited hangout? I think is what the more paranoid, people might say. I don't think I'm saying that. I think it's just like it's not clear a lot of the time, just based on what was available, I would assume. This is my assumption. I should maybe read more about the actual goings-ons of the hearings. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But my impression is more that it's not totally clear what the MK Ultra sub-projects are always trying to accomplish. Like, obviously, this one is like, what the fuck? You had concussion weapons. You were trying to make concussion weapons. But I think that I don't know. It is very weird that they'll just be like, hey, what, you're saying this and this is the reality. You were in fact funding, concussion weapons research, but then nothing really comes of that discussion, during these hearings. So I don't know. It's odd. So the press doesn't really pick up on it either. Dr. K points this out. He says, quote, the press noticed the interchange at the Senate hearing, but besides the soundbite of the perfect concussion, had little to say about the topic. It's just weird.
So it just kind of fades away. It doesn't, no one really bites on it.
Yeah. And so Kay actually brings up some other spots where this was mentioned. So there's an article from 1977 by Al Larkin at the Boston Globe where it references the stuff that the stated aims of MK-DECOY, but not by name. They don't have the name MK-DECOY in there. But here's a snippet from this article. It says this, quote, what has happened is that the details of one of the nation's most elaborate covert operations, aimed in part at determining the effects on human beings of everything from LSD and alcohol to knockout drugs and brain concussions, have already been put through the paper shredder. From those remaining documents, we know now that the CIA used cadavers to determine just how and where to strike the human skull to cause concussion. So there's corpses now.
Yeah.
So they have, we get these drops of they made these glass skull simulacra filled with liquid, but also they have corpses that they're working on. It's such a grim. It's so grim. It gets better from there, though.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. It's I mean, concussions suck. This is just pretty barbaric work to be doing. All the people involved should be ashamed of themselves. I'm not sure we say that enough when we're talking about these things. But goddamn.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts. So there's another article from 1977 around August by Nicholas Horrock and Joseph Treaster in the New York Times. And it's mostly focused on this idea that the CIA did experiments with LSD on, quote, sexual psychopaths. But they also, this article also mentions this project that the CIA has where they were testing, quote, exploded liquid-filled glass models of heads and human cadavers in an attempt to test the levels of brain concussion. So we know we know both of these things seem to have happened. So they were not always with human subjects. What we have here on some of the tests that were not with these human subjects, we have, quote, the agency tested a blackjack shaped like a pancake, an air gun that shot a small sack filled with lead, shot, and a soft pad that exploded when it came in contact with the body. In another experiment, it tested a sound wave so forceful that only a minute blast of sound could cause concussion.
They were trying to make Black Bolt's voice.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Pretty much. So the one that Schweiker brings up when he's talking to this Lobinger guy about the 2,500 square foot laboratory and this pancake blackjack, this is from the 1955 proposal by a CIA contractor for the project. And that proposal is how we know all the shit that we know about MK-DECOY.
Okay.
So this proposal was looking for funding, quote, for research on the mechanism of brain concussion. And it was based on something I couldn't understand this. And I don't think it's because I'm stupid. I think it's just because, I mean, I am stupid, but for different reasons. This is something called resonance cavitation theory of concussion. I don't understand it, so I didn't try to write about it, and even the original author, I tried to look into it. Apparently it's kind of an outdated theory of concussions. But even Dr. K was like, I'm not going to get into the technical details because I don't get it.
Okay.
So there is some sort of theory that I believe has to do with audio, with sound. And that's what the resonance cavitation theory is all about. When I looked up cavitation, it's like something to do with vortexes in a liquid. I really don't quite know what it means in this particular setup. So Dr. K says that he thinks the person who was the contractor for this proposal, for this part of the project, was somebody named Arthur Gross. This was a guy who was a scientist who actually worked on the resonance cavitation theory of brain concussion. And they have this 1977 memorandum from Department of Defense General Counsel, again, Diane Seimer, that is sent to Secretary of Defense Harold Brown, which talks about the ONR project that would get passed on to the CIA. And so based on what Seimer says here, the Navy program on, quote, identification of effects of blast concussion began in October 1954 and was terminated, at least with respect to the Navy, in December 1955, and that it was, quote, performed by a contractor located in California. The involvement of the Navy was primarily as a conduit of funds from the Central Intelligence Agency to the contractor. And then after the program is terminated, Seimer says that, quote, it thereafter apparently became subproject 54 of the MK Ultra project. The contractor was investigating the theory of the dynamics of brain concussion. Fluid-filled flasks were used to measure the effect of blast impacts from a 2.5-pound charge of dynamite 10 feet away. The results of this work were published in 1957 in a 17-page report entitled On the Impact Thresholds of Brain Concussion. So Seimer also points out that this document, this report on the impact thresholds of brain concussion, was coming from this place called the Gross Research Laboratories. And in 1957, there was also an article by this Arthur Gross guy that came out in the Journal of Neurosurgery. And Gross, in this article, is identified as being associated with, quote, Gross Research Laboratories in Inglewood, California. And Inglewood is near Los Angeles. And this Gross guy had written an article titled A New Theory on the Dynamics of Brain Concussion and Brain Injury. And in that article, he talks about you. I actually looked at this. I saw some of the diagrams that talk about this. He talks about the use of fluid-filled flasks simulating human heads for testing this stuff.
Yeah, so he some of the research got out, I guess. Okay.
So I think the implication here is maybe that I guess the research. So like we've seen this before too, where research that these scientists have done have gone public after they've been kind of working with the CIA. I'm pretty sure. I feel like that happened in another one of our stories.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if like, yeah, I guess sometime after that he was able to publish this article. But what happens here is all this information suggests that this Gross guy was probably the contractor for the CIA. So you can't say it with 100% certainty, but it's like after laying out all the information like that, it's like who else would it be? Who's the other brain concussion guy near Los Angeles? You know, you know,
sometimes you can just make some pretty logical leaps here, and it's pretty safe.
Yeah, Dr. K himself says, I don't actually have proof that it's him, but you know, for our purposes moving forward, let's just say that the author of the proposal is unknown. But like, also, you know, get a load of this guy.
But also like, pointing at the sign.
Yeah. So this author pulls a famous quote from Wilfred Trotter, who is a British neurosurgeon, who says that a concussion is, quote, an essentially transient state due to head injury, which is of instantaneous onset, is always followed by amnesia for the actual moment of the accident. And, you know, Dr. K says here, like, I think this author probably emphasized, because that sentence about amnesia is emphasized by the author. He's like, I think that was probably emphasized by the author of the proposal because he knew that the potential CIA sponsors were interested in that.
Yeah.
So the proposal continues and says, quote, if a technique were devised to induce brain concussion without giving either advance warning or causing external physical trauma, the person upon recovery would be unable to recall what had happened to him. Under such circumstances, the procedure could be repeated many times without disclosure of its nature.
It's the perfect crime.
It's a lot of why I want to do all this MK Ultra shit and talk about stuff like this is because it lays the ground for some of the most insane conspiracy shit I've read about that I just can't talk about yet.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if there is a fucking CIA device that can silently induce concussion and potentially a sort of amnesia state, that's fucking crazy. That's like, that's nuts.
Yeah, it is it's scary to even think about.
You joked about it up front, but one of the things that this researcher starts to maybe sort of not necessarily connect the dots explicitly and be like, it's, you know, definitive proof or whatever, but he says, like, could this possibly help explain Havana syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get ahead of myself on that stuff because we're gonna talk about that in part 2, but it's interesting. So this author goes on to talk about they would have to determine, you know, this, quote, optimal design for a concussion impact device. And that they would study, quote, optimum points of impact on skull or body for the specific effects desired, as well as the intensity of the blow for the effect desired.
Just imagining the testing of like, okay, how much pressure versus where is it going? The like, just they got to like map out the head and like find the different quadrants. They got to test different amounts of pressure at each quad. Like, it's so baffling that you would spend this much time trying. Like, I understand it from an evil point of view, like from a, like, we got to have weapons to deal with stuff and cover up for whatever. And like, I understand it from a cynical point of view, but goddamn, the statistical, like, research side of something so heinous and without any sort of positive impact on humanity even possible is like it I don't want to it's hard to think about for too long.
Yeah, I want to real quick give a big shout out to Jack Brewer and the Expanding Frontiers research group, because they interviewed Dr. Jeffrey Kay to talk about this article in particular. And one of the things that they discuss in there that I think is important, that has come up when we've talked about MK Ultra, is how a lot of these people are like academics and just like, relatively normal people, quote unquote, but they don't necessarily see what they're doing as evil. It's like we have a necessary duty to combat the communist threat. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I feel like when you're given this enemy that feels omnipresent and intensely dangerous and threatens, your ideology and your, whatever way of life, whatever you want to call it, that is an enormous pressure and ultimately an enormous point of pride for doing something like this, I think. I mean, I can't sit here and pretend I understand the psychology of somebody who does this, because I don't. But that's as best as I can figure it, is like people are like, yeah, I want to create the baton of concussions, so that we can defeat the evil communists who are going to, kill all my children and, destroy my country. Like, I don't know. It's not great.
I mean, patriotism's a real bitch. Like it you can get people to do a lot of things in the name of country, or God, or anything greater than yourself. And I'm not saying you should only think of yourself, but I think it's dangerous to think of. It's dangerous to at points think about things at that level of detachment from the individual.
Yeah.
And you can justify a lot of heinous shit to the individual under the guise of the greater good when you're thinking you have impact at that scale. It's a bit megalomaniacal, and also just incredibly paranoid and easy to prey on.
Yeah, so the author of the proposal, they were looking to hit some key points in their pitch of this device, given that it was going to have to be a covert device.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted first for, quote, the impact to be delivered without advance warning. They wanted to make sure that there was no surface trauma, no visible, like, welt or bruise or anything, no blood, no nothing to indicate that a weapon had been used. And then, of course, quote, the third thing would be, quote, the intensity of the impacting force and its duration should be such as to obtain the desired effect.
Yeah. Look, they wanted they wanted it to seem like a spontaneous concussion on the part of the person.
Yeah.
Which is almost weirdly, it would almost be less suspicious if there was a mark. Like, because then it'd be like you fell. But when there's no mark and you just randomly get a concussion, that feels almost obvious. Like that something weird's going on.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, that's fair. I don't know much about how concussions work. My understanding, again, from listening to this guy talk about what he learned, is that we don't know everything about how concussions function.
Yeah.
I sort of wonder if the idea is maybe that, like, if you don't have any signs of concussion, why would anybody look for it?
True.
I think that's the idea.
dazed and
Yeah,
don't remember what happened. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the idea is that if you are hit with the concussion baton,
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever sees any evidence of why you are behaving this way or why you had this weird, lapse in memory or whatever. Because nobody ever thinks to look for a concussion because you don't show any signs other than you're fucked up.
Fair. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that's fucking evil. Yeah. Anyway, not to keep coming back around to that, but it just keeps slipping out. Sorry, folks.
No, it's okay. I mean, we are kind of in the realm of evil shit here. It is what it is. So yeah, I'd mentioned how there was this pancake blackjack, which sounds so much more fun than like an evil CIA torture device. Like,
yeah. It's like the Yankees bats right now. They had to like reconfigure the shape of it for maximum effect, to hit harder at a specific point.
Yeah,
it's literally the same thing.
Yeah, it sounds more fun. But they were also talking about this a different thing that they wanted to develop, which was, quote, concealed or camouflaged spring-loaded impacting devices that trigger upon contact with the head. They also were talking about an air gun that had some sort of projectile that would be, quote, using a small shot-filled sack for a projectile, and a, quote, explosive pad detonated in contact with the head or the body.
Jesus.
So
at one point they were trying to do a boxing glove in like the arm of a jacket that can come out and hit you on the side of the head really hard.
As soon as you make contact, yeah. But of course, like, none of these feel, if you're trying to just fuck somebody's brain up without direct physical impact, then you gotta keep trying to innovate, right?
Yeah, gotta get that long range action.
Yes. So the person who wrote this proposal, this author, it begins to suggest the resonance cavitation. And what this apparently does, I'm going to quote from the article directly. It says this, quote, produces bubbles in the cerebrospinal fluid that then impacts brain cells and could be produced without physical impact via a blast wave propagated in air, or blast concussion. And this needed, quote, considerable intensity in order to produce brain concussion. So this is where Dr. K points out that this is probably why the ONR had been involved, because the Navy was concerned with the effects of explosive concussion stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He even says here, one wonders how many concussions sailors on destroyers experience from the blasts of the ship's huge guns. So it was relevant to them, and that's probably why it started there. So in the proposal, they go on to describe another method that would require no contact, which would be, quote, upon physical excitation with a mechanical driver or horn tuned to the resonant frequency of the head.
Interesting.
Which, that's one of those ones that feels so crazy to me. That's like, that's like 432 hertz shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but it's also just from my understanding of acoustics, which is like decent,
advanced. Oh,
like you would have to tune that per person, because like the size of the head is going to change the resonant cavity. And so like, it's not like they could find the single, unless they're talking about just like the fundamental frequency of like the density of bone. Like if it's like you're trying to like maybe that, but like it feels like that's a thing that they would have to do some like, bring out the fucking what do they call it? Calipers to do the head shape.
Yeah.
Get their fucking.
Well, and I don't know if they're attuning it to bone. They are trying to attune it to the brain.
Yeah. So maybe they're just going to the brain matter chemistry. Maybe.
Yeah, is there just like fundamental brain matter that you could attune it to? I don't know how that works at all. So
yeah.
I'm speaking out of my ass, but
I don't know the fundamental. I don't know the fundamental fucking frequency of gray matter.
Well, the author says that they could maybe use a, quote, tuned driver to excite resonance cavitation in the brain and could possibly induce neurotic-like manifestations normally associated with blast concussion. And this author says, and I don't know, I read this and I think, yeah, of course they're going to say that. They're getting paid big bucks by the CIA, probably. But the author says that a tuned driver excitation device would be, quote, well within the realm of possibility. It would be easy to hide. It would be small. It could produce an amnesia state and impair brain functioning that could be useful for brainwashing.
Okay.
And, amnesia states are kind of within that wide net of the MK Ultra stuff that they were looking for. Because again, if you remember, a lot of this stems from interrogation. They wanted to like have these fucked up heightened interrogation sessions with prisoners, and with like, people who might be able to be useful intelligence assets or whatever. But here's something I've got here's a little snippet from the author in full that says this. Concentration of the sound field at some remote point could be affected with acoustical lenses and reflectors. The blast duration would be in the order of 1/10 of a second. Masking of a noise of this duration should not be too difficult. It would possibly be advantageous to establish the effectiveness of both of the above methods as a tool in brainwash therapy. A full knowledge of the method and the resulting sequela should be of aid to any person forced to submit to such treatment. So they also, there's this weird aside where there's this discussion of how they could even be using this technology to have concussion defenses for their agents and stuff. And it goes on to say this. Possibly the most significant potential aspect of this study would be in the development of practical means of giving a person immunity, even though temporary, to brain concussion. And Kay says here, it's not clear how practical such means might be, as the contractor's example involved introducing, quote, a small quantity of gas, approximately 1 cc, into the spinal cord, where it could expand under dynamic loading and be most effective in preventing resonance cavitation from occurring. So they have this proposal that also suggests, what if we shot some air into your spine that would protect you from concussions for a little while?
Yeah. That's wild. Okay, so like they're targeting your spinal fluid to try to elicit bubbles into it that will then go and pop into your brain, causing concussion like symptoms. And then they're like, we're also going to try to reverse that because someone else is obviously working on this as well, which, hey,
Right.
maybe the Soviets are.
That is exactly what they're afraid of, is that other people, the Chinese, the Soviets, have they also been researching this? Have they developed a concussion gun yet? That's what they're scared of.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where their paranoia has led them. So I'm going to go ahead and say we should count that as part one. Let's put a stop here.
Okay.
It gets stranger. And you know what? I don't even want to sit here and try and like gas up what part 2 entails. We are about to leave the realm of specifically subproject 54, but what we'll find is that there's another subproject that I think is, let me see, I think 61.
Okay.
That this author suggests may be related to, or is where some of the stuff that they were trying to do with MK-DECOY got moved to this other subproject.
Interesting. So it's kind of the successor to 54.
Yes,
almost.
and that's when we're going to be getting to, all the fucked up stuff with cats and stuff.
Fantastic.
So,
all right.
So with all of that being said, Niall, are you ready for a big question?
I'm always ready.
All right. I was going to ask you if you've ever had a concussion, but have you ever had a concussion, Niall? I haven't.
No, I haven't either.
I talked to somebody recently who had a concussion. So here's an alternate question.
Yeah.
What's the worst physical injury you ever had, and what did it do to you mentally?
I mean, physical injury, probably when I
Yeah.
broke my toes in first grade.
You broke your toes? How did you break your toes?
I broke. So if I remember correctly, the way the doctor was being explained to a child, so I take this medically as you will. But
Okay.
I broke the bones in 4 of my toes and wrinkled the 5th one, whatever the fuck that means. So I was riding a bike, and I went to turn around and in a driveway of one of our neighbors, and the back wheel hit the divider on their 2-car garage, and so it took the bike out from under me, and my toes got tangled up in the bike chain.
Oh, fuck. What the fuck? I've never heard this story.
Yeah, it was in first grade, and so my brother
That's
had to run home and get my parents to come like help
Oh
me
my
get
God.
home, because I tried to walk it off, and that was a bad idea. That was also, my dad took me to the hospital, and I got checked out and like put in the cast and everything, and that was the first time I ever had Reese's sticks. My dad bought me Reese's sticks in the hospital waiting room.
What are Reese's sticks?
It's like a Reese's thing.
Like a-
it's like a Twix, but it's a Reese's kind of.
Oh, one. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you think that I just realized that my answer is going to be hilariously also related to my toes?
Okay.
But do you feel like because let me just explain this. I realize I'm pretty. The 2 injuries that I think of, the one that immediately popped in my brain.
Here's the thing.
Oh.
I cracked my head open when I was a child, but it was before I have memories.
Jesus.
I have the big scar. Like it's
Do you think that's why you don't have the memories? Is because you
probably.
cracked your head open
I mean,
and
hey,
they, like, fell out?
I probably got a concussion at like 3 years old because I cracked my head open. But I honestly don't know if I got a concussion or not.
You doing like wrestling moves or something? What were you doing?
I was at the department store Von Mauer in Iowa, and I tripped over a loose corner of carpet, and my head cracked on the side of a checkout counter, on like the corner of a checkout counter, and they had to take me to the hospital. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So those are my 2 big injuries.
That's
I realized after I said my toes, like I have a scar on my forehead that is like very noticeable and a thing, but it was before I have memories of breaking my foot. I have no memories of breaking my skull.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know either of these things about. How do I not know any of that? How did I not know about these? Maybe, it could be
probably
the fact
heard
that,
them. But
yeah, it was probably told to me at one point. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So my brain immediately went to the time that I had a horrifying ingrown toenail.
I remember this.
Where they had to basically slice my toe up, and I now have like half a toenail on my big toe on my right foot. I thought to myself, maybe mentally this is why I cannot handle feet and toes.
Okay, but you didn't like feet before that though.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. Okay, maybe it's not that. But then I remembered I actually have that's like a medical situation of like. That was, I think, probably due to marching band, honestly. Yeah. Here's an actual injury. We had a playground at my elementary school that had a jungle gym, not a jungle gym, but like the bars, like a stretch of bars that you could the monkey bars that you could climb on and stuff. I had the fucking brilliant idea to go crawl on top of the monkey bars. Not, use them as intended, but get on top of them and crawl across them.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I stood up while I was on them.
Yeah, there was your mistake.
What I ended up doing was falling in between the bars and hitting my chin on the way down. And I have a scar from this to this day as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the teeth in my upper jaw, one of my upper teeth went through like the lower part of my lip.
Okay.
And I don't think I got a concussion.
Yeah.
But I do think that made me extremely scared of hurting my teeth and my mouth and my face.
Yeah, as it would. Yeah, it's hitting that really hard. That'll work.
And I do think that, but yeah, I've never had a concussion. I'm very injury averse somehow. I've never broken a bone.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
I've broken a couple, but all at one time. Oh, 2 times, I guess.
I've never broken a bone, but I'm looking to change that real soon.
Yeah, well, hey,
let you know.
Let's set a Patreon goal. How many people do you have to sign up for the Patreon for Kyle to break a bone?
Yeah, hey, we'll get a bunch. Okay, if we reach, let's call it $5,000 a month, $5,000 worth of patrons. I don't know how many patrons that is off the top of my head, but it's a lot. We get 5,000 patron dollars a month.
Mm-hmm.
You can all vote on which bone I'm breaking.
Yeah.
And I'll fly Niall out to me.
Yeah.
And Niall can
I'll break it
for me.
We'll do it live on Twitch.
We'll do it live.
Get banned from Twitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we can develop some sort of like gun that does it remotely too.
Mm-hmm.
Just a gun that breaks bones would be kind of interesting.
It would be good.
It would be really
it just
good.
shoots like a. I'm really big on this like
like
very,
a big cartoon fist.
cartoon boxing glove kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. No, that would be cool. And then of course after that we will get scouted by the CIA.
Yeah. Look, I'm just trying to we got to make money somehow.
We got to make money. People just assume that they were paying us exorbitant sums of money to put out disinformation on a podcast that is got a consistent following. Some listeners. But the truth is we were always aiming to try and get into the CIA's covert weapons.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to offer there.
We have a lot to offer.
Really
where
real
ideas
malaise for human life. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's part 1. We're gonna get into some really wild shit in part 2. This was a lot. I will admit this is a lot of setup and explanation of how this came to be. But in part 2, we're gonna talk about a lot more crazy shit. So,
all right,
be prepared.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Do you want to take care of some business?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers. Wherever you listen to podcasts, look up It Gets Weird, and we're almost certainly there.
We're on Blue Sky at It Gets Weird. We're on twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird. Give us a follow on those sites. We're, social media sucks, but we're one of the good ones. So, that at least by following us, you'll have a fun time. Twitch has been a lot of fun lately, too. I'm playing Pokemon with Colin. We're kind of doing, every once in a while, some fun, weird one-off streams. Garrett was on recently, so that's been a lot of fun. Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. We had some good emails recently from some interesting listeners telling us some interesting stuff. So if you ever want us to read your email out on the show, you got something interesting to tell us about, a story, an experience, maybe we missed some information, hit us up. Let us know how we should address you, and we might read your email out onto the show. Finally, patreon.com/itgetsweird. If you want to break my bones, this is where you want to go. We have a $1 tier. That's just a tip. You're just saying, hey, thanks for doing what you do. Here's $1. But at the $2 tier and the $5 tier, you get a bunch of bonus content. At $2, Niall and I just wrapped for It Gets Weird TV. We have just finished Neon Genesis Evangelion, the anime series that I am a little obsessed with. And we're about to watch the End of Evangelion movie to cap it all off. And then people will get to vote what series we watch next. And that's at the $2 tier. So that's already a ton of bonus stuff. But if you want even more, our $5 tier is where you're going to get World of Weird, where Niall and I, in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV, talk about whatever the hell we want. Lots of stuff. Sometimes it's stuff related to the main show, some behind-the-scenes stuff about that. But a lot of the times it's just Niall and I shooting the shit about stuff we enjoy, stuff we're interested in, and it's a lot of fun. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on your own private Patreon feed. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with our listeners. You can talk to us directly there. You can tell me all the different ways you're going to break my bones through messaging me there. It's a lot of fun. So please donate to the Patreon. We don't advertise. It's a thing that we've stuck to all this time. because podcast advertisements fucking suck, but we also make not a lot of money in our lives, and it would be very helpful to have more Patreon people out there. To those of you who are donating, we really appreciate you. For those of you who can't, we understand you. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for supporting the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.